who don't know how to weep with their whole hearts don't know how to laugh either.
Following your feelings will lead you to their source. Only through emotions can you encounter the force field of your own soul.
The energy that actually shapes the world springs from emotions.
In the small matters, trust the mind. In the large ones, trust the heart.
Have you ever been in one of those situations where something just doesn't feel quite right and you're not sure exactly what it is? You can't back it up with logic. You can't define it intellectually. You call it an intuition, a hunch, a gut feeling. You just know that something's off. I think we've all had that experience. We pick up some kind of negative data. It got past our conscious mind, but our emotions caught it, and they brought it to our attention in the form of a feeling. Well, if you're like me, you've learned to pay attention to gut feelings like that, because many times they turned out to be right. So what is that? What's it all about? What are emotions anyway? Well, today we know that the whole body possesses intelligence. It's like the whole body is the brain. Emotions are body wisdom. They're our innate intelligence. Signals from deep within us that come up in response to some aspect of reality that we may not even be conscious of. Emotions are there to tell us something. Emotions are usually a call to action. That uneasy feeling in your gut, that could be your body wisdom telling you to use caution. Be careful. Be on your guard. Fear can tell you to run. Move and move now. Anger usually tells us that our boundaries have been violated in some way. Feelings like love, happiness, and joy, these positive signals tell us that we're doing something right. We're making good choices. We're finding ourselves in desirable situations. Pleasurable emotions like that tell us to keep doing more of the same because it seems to be working. Emotions are just an incredible gift that our species has been given. It's free wisdom. We don't have to learn it in school. It's built into the fabric of our beings. Unlike intellectual intelligence, emotions are direct. They're intense. They're actually hardwired into your nervous system. It's like that instant shock that you get in the middle of your chest when you're walking through the woods and you see a rustling in the grass just ahead. If that were a poisonous snake ready to strike, it would be your emotions, not your thinking brain, that would save you. I mean, if you had to intellectually analyze what was going on and make a logical decision about what might be in the grass and what the appropriate next step is for you, you'd be done for. But what happens? Instead, you instinctively jump back before your brain can even register a thought. Emotions are faster than intellect, and they're deeper. What an amazing gift we've been given. Now, are emotions always right? Of course they're not. We've all had emotional reactions that we regretted later. We've all gotten angry or jealous over something really stupid. We've all gone down ridiculous emotional thought roads only to realize later that we were completely wrong about the entire situation, right? So we certainly don't want to go charging off blindly in the direction of every emotion as if it were infallible wisdom. It's a really, really good idea to check our feelings with our brains. And here's the thing. Sometimes our heads and our hearts can have a difference of opinion on an issue. If that happens, you can be sure that something's off somewhere. There's an error, a conflict, a contradiction. Sometimes the error is with the head. We're not thinking properly. Sometimes it's with the heart. Our emotions can run away with us. And sometimes it's with both. We need to bring consciousness to situations like that and stay with the issue till we work it out, till our head and our heart agree. Your emotions can be your best friend or they can be your worst enemy. If you have a healthy, open relationship with your emotions, if you acknowledge, accept, and honor them, if you treat them as tools of awareness, you'll have a built-in barometer that's going to help you make good decisions in life. If you listen to what your emotions are trying to tell you, you can become intimately connected with the deepest part of yourself. High emotional intelligence allows you to become very resourceful, grounded, solid. The willingness to experience your feelings has direct healing power. It clears the way for you to begin to understand and deal with just about any issue, any wound, any hurt in your life. On the other hand, if we don't honor our emotions, and when we fight or push down or try to block a feeling, it tends to grow stronger. And this is a hugely valuable thing for you to understand about your emotions. The more you try to resist an emotion, try to push it down or ignore it, the louder that emotion will tend to become. Because that feeling is there to tell us something, and it's usually not going to go away until we get the message. The farther we push it down, the stronger it needs to become in order for it to be heard. But when we allow ourselves to acknowledge and experience that emotion, even though it may be uncomfortable or painful, and when we listen to what it's trying to tell us, it usually begins to melt. Once it does its job, a negative emotion will usually recede willingly. So acknowledging, accepting, and learning from our emotions is the key to emotional growth. Now there's another very interesting and important aspect of human emotions that most people have no clue about, but it can have a profound effect on your life once you fully realize it. Emotional states can be created consciously. This means that you can exercise control over the emotions that you experience on a daily basis. You can choose them, and everyone has the power to do this. For instance, if I want to experience an emotional state like peacefulness, tranquility, serenity, I can create those states by doing certain things. There's a recipe for those emotions. Walking through a beautiful garden usually makes me feel more tranquil. Listening to soft, relaxing music usually calms me down. The sight and the sound of gently flowing water usually makes me feel more peaceful. So surrounding myself with things like that, with plants, with flowers, with living things, quieting my mind through meditation or yoga or mindfulness practices, spending time in nature, surrounding myself with warmth and love. These things, just thinking about them makes me feel more peaceful and puts me in a tranquil emotional state. There's a recipe for every emotional state. There's a recipe for happiness, and there's a recipe for jealousy. There's a recipe for joy and passion, and for anger, and for sadness. All these emotional states can be generated if you do the things that make you feel that way. This can really be a life-changing concept, because once you truly grasp the fact that emotional states can be created, you can consciously choose which emotional states you want to experience on a daily basis and which ones you're unwilling to allow into your life. This is called emotional control, and every human being has it within their power to exercise that control. Now, I'm not suggesting that we can feel absolutely wonderful every second of every day. People are going to let us down. People are going to make us angry. They're going to hurt our feelings. Disappointment happens in life. Failure happens, and it hurts when it does. Our lives can be stressful. And sometimes in life, we're going to encounter emotional states that are just so powerful that they temporarily override everything else. They're impossible to change, at least for a while. The loss of a child, or a divorce, or a physical accident, for instance. These things can be so traumatic that you can see how difficult it would be to just create more positive emotions on demand while you're dealing with something like that. But for the most part, in the absence of serious physical or psychological trauma, you have the power within you to exercise a tremendous amount of control over the emotions you experience on a daily basis, period. You can think about and do the things that make you happy, and you'll actually be happier. You can think about and do the things that relax you, and you'll actually be more relaxed. You can think about and do the things that make you grateful and fulfilled, and you'll instantly change your emotional state to those positive emotions. You can learn to manage your emotions in everyday life, and maybe even master them. The ability to tap into your body wisdom, to become aware of your emotions, to learn from them and let them guide you is huge. The ability to identify what emotional states you want to experience in your life and to learn how to create those states is also huge. Developing both of those skills simultaneously can change everything in your life. Most people have never thought through what they believe about their emotions, what they are, where they come from, and why they're so important. But I'm not one of them. I've done a tremendous amount of thinking and some deep study on this subject over the years, and I'll tell you why. When I was in my early 20s, something happened to me that changed my life forever. I'm the oldest of 7 kids, and we grew up poor, so life wasn't very easy for us in a lot of ways when I was growing up. But when I was a teenager, my dad started a little business, and by the time I was a senior in high school, that business had really taken off. So I found myself with a lot of opportunities in my early 20s. And coming from where I came from, I was not about to let them slip away. I rolled up my sleeves and I just took on the world. And I found that I could handle an immense workload. So I pushed myself to the max. I was the leader and the navigator of my whole family. I was parenting my parents, I was parenting my siblings as well as my own kids, and I started company after company after company. I was building my dream home, which was a huge project all on its own, and my life back then required 15, 16, 17-hour work days. And I spent years at that pace, burning the candle at both ends, making massive stuff happen, driving my career, my businesses, my family, and my financial life forward. It was a very exciting time, but it was also highly stressful, and eventually it just became overwhelming. I wasn't taking good care of myself physically, wasn't eating right, I was partying like a rock star. I was just too busy to notice the danger signals, too busy to address the issues in my life. It was life in the fast lane. Well, I exhausted myself, and one day I found myself in total overload. After years and years of holding everything up for everyone, I simply collapsed under the weight of my own life. My nervous system just gave out, and I had a series of debilitating panic attacks. Now, if you've never had a panic attack before, it's difficult to convey how absolutely horrifying they are, especially the first one, when you got no idea what's going on. You simply lose control of yourself. You can't see properly, you can't think properly, you can't hear. I had no idea what was happening to me. I didn't know what was wrong with me. My nervous system just went haywire, and my entire emotional life just went right down the tubes. I sunk into a generalized anxiety disorder, where I was on the verge of panic all day long, for months in a row. It got so bad, it developed into full-blown agoraphobia, and I was housebound for 2 months. Like literally, I could not drive out of my driveway without being in a complete state of panic, where I felt like I was just going to melt down and break apart. Couldn't go to a restaurant, couldn't go to a grocery store. I was a complete emotional wreck, totally shut down. I'd gone from feeling like I could do anything to being able to do nothing. All my efficacy was gone, and my self-esteem went right down the toilet with it. I'd hit rock bottom. Well, I called my family, I called the people that work for me, that run my companies, and I said, look, I can't even pretend to work right now. You're on your own until further notice. No replacement strategy, no transition, I'm just done. I'm looking over the edge of a very scary place right now, and I need some time to recover and sort through my life and figure this out. I can't even put into words how horrifying and painful that time was in my life. You can't go much lower than not being able to function. than being totally incapacitated. Now, that's about as bad as it gets. I remember thinking to myself, what am I going to do? What the hell am I going to do? My self-concept had been completely destroyed. It had been torn apart. It was gone. And I remember thinking to myself, who am I? I mean, 3 months ago, I knew who I was. I was a highly successful business executive. Now who am I? And where do I go from here? I had to rebuild my life from the ground up. I had to completely start over in a lot of ways. And it wasn't going to be easy. It was going to be a big project. Most of my family had to just sit there watching powerless, not being able to help me, not knowing what to do. But my dad actually came to my rescue in a very unexpected way. He was watching infomercials on TV late one night, and he ordered me 2 personal development audio programs because he thought they might help me. And they were the very first personal development programs I ever did. And they totally changed the course of my life. It took me 8 years to recover fully from that nervous breakdown. And it was a lot of work. I mean, I studied everything I could find on the subject of my emotional life. And I did everything that there was to do at the time. Deep psychotherapy, biofeedback, neural feedback, NAC, behavioral modification therapy. I mean, everything I could find. I also read a few great books and studied a few good audio courses on emotion. And I got an initial foothold. I learned how intimately your emotions are tied to your health and nutrition. And I modified my diet and my supplementation program, which was huge for me. That was a big breakthrough. And eventually, little by little, I was able to reclaim my life. Not only that, but I came out the other side of that very painful experience stronger and better than I'd ever been before. So no matter where you might be in this category of your life, no matter how difficult things might be for you right now, trust me, I can relate. I've been there. I've gone deep in this category, and not necessarily because I wanted to, because I had to. And I'm going to share a few things with you right now that I learned during that process in the form of the premise for my emotional life. My emotional premise comes down to 2 very simple but very powerful beliefs. First, I believe that achieving excellence in any dimension of life requires high emotional intelligence. If I'm emotionally unhealthy, it hurts everything in my life. And I know that from personal experience, and I'll bet you do too. If my emotions are out of control, I can't think clearly, which is going to have a negative effect on everything in my life. I have a hard time being productive, which is going to affect my career and my financial life. My character suffers. It hurts my parenting because I'm not setting a great example for my kids. I mean, nothing works right if I'm experiencing angst, anxiety, depression, or overwhelm on a consistent basis. For instance, there's a tremendous body of scientific evidence that shows how our emotions have a huge impact on our physical health. Chronic emotional distress is more dangerous than smoking. Chronic anxiety, depression, anger, these emotions are toxic. They literally release chemicals into the brain and bloodstream that make you sick and wear you out and make you old. Chronic emotional distress can literally kill you. On the other hand, if I'm emotionally healthy, it helps everything in my life. From my marriage, to my career, to my finances, to my friendships, to my spiritual life, everything in my life is affected positively by positive emotions. When I feel good about myself and my life, it generates this halo effect that makes everything brighter. Research shows that laughter, joy, hope, feelings of love and happiness, these feelings are literally medicinal. They heal your body. They'll cure you. These feelings release endorphins and other chemicals that literally make your body well. Study after study shows that these feelings increase immune function and actually promote physical healing. There are many, many cases of people healing themselves from incurable, life-threatening illness through love and laughter. Entire books have been written on that subject. Your emotional life has a major effect on your intellectual life as well. Research has shown that emotional intelligence is absolutely critical to healthy thinking and reasoning skills. A good attitude, a healthy emotional outlook, allows the thinking brain to thrive. On the other hand, emotional distress has a devastating impact on mental clarity. Doesn't matter how smart a person is, if they're emotionally out of control, they will not be able to function properly. I know that from personal experience. Emotions can simply overpower and paralyze the intellectual brain. I can't have good relationships without emotional intelligence. Any relationship. My love relationship, my friendships, even business relationships. I mean, try making a business deal with someone when you're unable to experience an emotion like empathy, the ability to put yourself in someone else's shoes and really understand where they're coming from. You won't be able to do it. So I believe that achieving excellence in any dimension of life requires high emotional intelligence. Here's my second foundational belief, and this is a big one. Emotional intelligence is made up of two components, emotional insight plus emotional control. Emotional insight means being conscious of and accepting and learning from my emotions, being in touch with them, seeking to understand my emotions, looking for what they're trying to tell me when they come up, seeking to develop deep insight into what I'm feeling and why I'm feeling it. Emotional control means the ability to create the emotions that I want in my life. Every emotional state has a recipe, and I can discover what that recipe is and create the emotional states that I want to feel on a daily basis. Once again, I'm in control of my own life, the Lifebook mantra. This skill requires no one's permission to develop. It's a choice you make. And if you decide to make the choice of learning how to control your emotional states, it's going to give you a huge advantage in life. It's an immensely valuable skill, which will help you implement in the strategy section. The combination of emotional insight and emotional control is unbelievably powerful. These two things add up to emotional intelligence. Now, what might that look like in action? Well, take an emotion like anger. Say something happens that makes you really angry. Might be an email you got or a phone call or something someone said. When anger comes up, it's usually trying to tell me that one of my boundaries has been violated by someone in some way. That emotion is there for a reason. I don't want to push it down. I don't want to ignore it. I don't want to squash it or deny its existence. I want to feel it, even though it doesn't feel good. I want to look at it, and I want to try to figure out what it's trying to tell me. It might be trying to say, you need to change this relationship because this person isn't being respectful or honest or whatever. You need to avoid this person in the future. You need to stand up for yourself right now. You need to draw a line in the sand. You need to solve this problem. So I listen to that emotion, and I ask myself, where's the wisdom here? What's this emotion trying to tell me? And then once I acknowledge my anger, accept it, listen to it, honor it, and learn from it, I can say thank you and dismiss it. Just let it go. Because I don't want to live with that particular emotion in my life on an ongoing basis. I want to figure out a way to replace it with an emotion that's more aligned with the way that I want to feel every day. So those are my simple but really useful beliefs in my emotional premise. Achieving excellence in any dimension of life requires high emotional intelligence, and that means emotional insight and emotional control. And now let's turn to the wisdom of the Lifebook community. Here are some beautiful emotional premise statements from Lifebook members worldwide. My emotions are tools of awareness and consciousness, a window into my soul. My emotions are my guidance system. They help me understand whether or not my thoughts are in alignment with who I really am. Happiness is something I decide on ahead of time. My emotions are mine to do with as I choose. When I'm able to access my emotions, I'm much more effective at making choices, decisions, and commitments. I believe wholeheartedly that my emotional life is my intuitive guidance from God. Nobody can create my happiness other than me. I am my own emotional master chef. I know all the recipes, even the secret sauces, of my emotions. Mastering and maintaining emotional integrity is the key to mastering my life. So what do you believe about your emotional life? Do you believe that emotional intelligence is foundational to living an extraordinary life? Well, if so, document it in your Lifebook. Do you believe in the wisdom of emotional insight? Do you believe that you have the capacity to exercise emotional control? Would believing these things serve you in your life? If so, take some notes, put them in your own words, and make them yours. If not, throw those beliefs out and replace them with what you believe about emotions. What are they? Where do they come from? And why are they so important? Take a few moments now and document your foundational premise for your emotional life. Now it's time to do some thinking about your ideal vision for your emotional life. When it comes to your emotions, how do you see yourself? What kind of a relationship do you want to have with your feelings? Can you see yourself as developing high emotional intelligence in the coming years? Can you see yourself as someone who knows how to manage their emotional states? What are the specific emotions that you want to create in your life on a daily basis? What is your vision for your emotional life? When I think about what I want in this category, how I see myself, this is my vision for my emotional life. I see myself as having very high emotional intelligence. I want to have an emotional edge in life. So I see myself as someone who's very in touch with his emotions, which is sometimes difficult for anyone, but especially for men. For whatever reason, men sometimes have trouble connecting with and acknowledging their deepest feelings. And if that's you, I invite you to explore this issue with me because it can really help unlock an immense power in your life. I don't want to be afraid to feel. I don't want to be afraid to laugh. I don't want to be afraid to cry. I don't want to be afraid to share my true feelings. I don't want to be afraid of what my emotions are trying to tell me. I mean, there's wisdom there. They're there for a reason, and I want that wisdom. When emotions come up in my emotional body, whether they feel good or whether they feel bad, I want to listen to them and do my best to understand what they're trying to tell me. I want to honor and learn from my emotions. This is going to give me an emotional edge in life, and that's not all that common. Here's the second part of my vision. I want to become a master at managing my emotional states so that I can feel good as much as possible in my life. I will define and create the specific emotions that I want to experience on an ongoing basis, and then I'm going to continuously flood myself with those emotions. Feelings of happiness and joy, feelings of love, confidence, and self-esteem, passion and sensuality, feelings of contentment and fulfillment, courage, compassion, empathy. I mean, these are the kinds of emotions that I want to experience on an ongoing basis. So I want to become better and better at generating these emotions in my life by defining what creates those emotions and then doing more of those things in my life. Here's the third part of my vision. I'm going to let all those positive emotions add up to an extraordinary attitude, an incredibly positive, empowered outlook on life. I want this positive emotional attitude to completely permeate me, to become part of everything I do, the way I think, the way I walk, the way I dress, the way I work out, the way I play. I want to live this way every day, radiating joy and happiness and success and fulfillment. Now, the emotion of gratefulness is a major key here. I consider it a magic emotion, and we're going to explore that deeper in a few minutes. If I can manage my emotions well, and if I can maintain a happy, successful, empowered attitude, I know I'm going to have a happy, successful, empowered life. If I expect to be great and feel great on a consistent basis, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, and I know that that's what I'm going to experience in my life. Here's the last part of my emotional vision. I will consciously cultivate and nurture my highest emotional value, which is happiness. Aristotle said, "Happiness is the meaning and the purpose of life, the whole aim and end of human existence." So we're going to be talking about happiness a lot in the Lifebook program. Because I'll tell you, at the end of the day, pretty much everything we do at Lifebook, all the thinking, all the reflecting, the planning, the goal setting, pretty much everything we do is designed to generate more happiness. I mean, a successful life isn't just about charging toward your goals every second of the day. Life is meant to be lived. Life is meant to be enjoyed. Playing with your kids, long leisurely dinners with your love, time spent in nature. I mean, one of the most important reasons we're here is to enjoy our lives. And guess what? Living in a proper way, in a moral, meaningful way, actually should generate happiness. I mean, realizing our dreams should be fun. It's one of the most enjoyable things about living. It should be fun to get in shape. It should be fun to make more money. It should be fun to build a great romantic relationship. If I'm not enjoying the process while creating abundance in every important area of my life, kind of missing the main point, right? Because the main point is happiness. And by the way, I'm talking about true happiness here. Deep, abiding joy and fulfillment, not to be confused, as so many people do, with pleasure in the moment, from eating a box of donuts or an extra large pizza or getting drunk or promiscuous sex, which can lead to being happy in the moment, but more often than not, those things are just temporary pleasures, producing fleeting moments of self-indulgence, and in many cases, they actually decrease your happiness later. So, I'm going to study and practice true, lasting happiness as a discipline. I'm going to take it seriously, and I'm going to create as much of it as I can for myself and the people I love. Now let's turn to the wisdom of the Lifebook community. Here are some beautiful emotional vision statements from Lifebook members worldwide. My emotions empower my relationships and my actions. I radiate gratitude, kindness, compassion, sensuality, and balance. I will acknowledge and respect all my emotions, but I will guide and nurture those that most support the life I truly want to live. Joy and gratitude are my consistent and natural states. I will be positive and create tremendous joy and happiness in my life. I will forgive myself, trust myself, encourage myself, and love myself. I am a master of my emotional states, and I will consciously create emotions of high-frequency vibrations. I can easily choose and control my emotions. I listen to and learn from my emotions, and I integrate the gifts that they give me so I can move my life in a more expansive direction. I constantly listen to my emotions, not only to gain valuable insights, but also to learn and take intelligent action. I will purposefully flood myself with positive feelings to maintain my happiness, love, passion, and joy. This allows me to live in an extraordinary state of mind and to create my life consciously. What is your vision for your emotional life? Do you see yourself as someone who honors and listens to your emotions? Do you see yourself as mastering the art of creating and managing the specific emotional states that are most desirable to you? What kind of emotions do you want to create in your life every day? What kind of an attitude do you want to carry around with you? Do you see your emotional life as unfolding beautifully in the coming years? Take a few moments now and outline your thoughts on your ideal vision for your emotional life. Now that you've given some thought to your vision for your emotional life, it's time to define your purpose, why you want to achieve that vision. As we begin this exploration, I want to point out something fascinating that I've learned about the emotional category that makes it a little bit different from the other categories we're going to study. You've heard me say before, a win here is a win everywhere in your life, right? That's the way most of the Lifebook categories work. I mean, if you improve your health and fitness, every other area of your life is going to improve as a result. You improve your financial life, your whole life should improve right along with it. However, success in any one of the categories all on its own doesn't necessarily add up to what we'd consider an overall successful, fulfilling life, except the emotional category. Because if you create a serious win in the emotional category, if you're experiencing feelings like contentment, joy, happiness, fulfillment, gratefulness on a daily basis, you automatically win at life, generally, period. And this may be the only category that works this way. I mean, look, we all know this. You can be ultra wealthy and still have a miserable life. Everyone knows that. Think about Ebenezer Scrooge. He was a miserable rich guy. We also know that you can have a successful career and yet still be a complete wreck, living a stressed out, unbalanced life. That's actually common. You can be a supermodel with a perfect body or an intellectual genius and still experience a lot of angst or anxiety or depression in your life on a consistent basis. But if you get this category right, the emotional category, and really dial it in, if you're feeling all those amazing emotions on a daily basis, that is simply an indicator of overall success as a human being. Why? Because as Aristotle said, happiness is the meaning and the purpose of life. the whole aim and end of human existence. It's the end game. And happiness is available to all of us if we just get in touch with what makes us happier and do more of that stuff. So this is such an important high leverage category for us to focus on and for us to get right. Now, my purpose for this category is super simple. The reason I want to experience great emotions and feel good as much as I can on an ongoing basis is because that is what is required to live an extraordinary life. Consistently great emotions equals a consistently great life. It's as simple as that. I am absolutely committed to creating and experiencing the emotional states that I want in my life. Love, joy, happiness, passion, sensuality, every day, because to me, those are simply the things that make life worth living. And that's a huge why for me. Here's another big why. I believe that high emotional intelligence is mandatory for me to achieve my goals. I literally can't get the life that I want without high emotional intelligence. Here's another big why for me. I want to be an inspirational example to the people around me, including my kids. I want to prove through the way that I live my life that high-quality emotions are available to all of us every single day, and that adds up to a high-quality life. So those reasons really inspire me to understand and appreciate my emotions. They make me want to practice managing my emotional states until I master them. Let's turn to the wisdom of the Lifebook community now. Here are some beautiful emotional purpose statements from Lifebook members worldwide. I will use my emotional states to live up to my full potential, to fully accept myself and learn from myself, to be happy and to have fun. Creating happiness, love, excitement, confidence, peacefulness, and compassion is the foundation for every success in my life. My purpose in controlling my emotions is to vibrate at a higher frequency and to set a great example for my children. I want to empower me. By developing more emotional intelligence, I am better able to relate with other people because I will be relaxed, confident, and happy with myself. I don't want to be reactive. I want to have more time in between action and reaction. I want to own my emotions. I don't want my emotions to own me. I will be a better friend if I feel deeply and better understand the feelings of those I love. I can make their lives more joyful, blessed, and filled with love. The be-all, end-all purpose in life is happiness. Being happy is the whole point. It's the only real success. So what are the deepest, most compelling reasons you can think of for achieving your emotional vision? Take a few moments now and define the purpose behind the vision for your emotional life. Missy and I were in Bali a few years ago, and I came across a quote scrawled on a bathroom wall in a really nice restaurant. And it was profound. Here's what it said. When I was little, my mom always told me that happiness was the most important thing in life. When I got older and went to school, they asked me what I wanted to be when I grew up, and I said happy. My teacher told me I didn't understand the assignment. I told my teacher he didn't understand life. That's some high-quality graffiti right there, folks. If you ask yourself why you want anything enough times, you're going to come to one final answer. Because I want to be happy. No matter what it is, whether you want to make a lot of money, or have a great body, or have a passionate love affair, or to make a big difference in the world, all those wonderful things are just means to an end. And the end is your happiness and your fulfillment. At the end of the day, that's what Lifebook is all about. Everything we do, all the goal setting, the challenges, the exercises, the measuring and reporting, the inspiration and motivation that we bring to you, everything we do in this program is designed to help you move closer in one way or another to a happier, more fulfilling, more successful life. So if your goal is to be happier, if your goal is to be a more fulfilled person, the first order of business is to pay attention to what makes you happy and fulfilled versus unhappy and unfulfilled so you can react appropriately and move toward happiness and away from unhappiness. It's up to you to become aware of what kind of situations, events, people, places, and things evoke happiness inside of you. You got to get conscious of the things that make your heart swell with love, that make you feel joy inside. You got to pay attention to what puts a smile on your face and a skip in your step. Identify those things and value them. And then, and this is where your emotional strategy comes in, simply make a commitment to do more of those things. Literally, plan them into your schedule. If you know that an overnight date with your love is going to make you happy, you can increase the frequency of your overnight dates from once a year to once a month to once a week, and you'll have a happier marriage and a happier life as a result. Guaranteed. Maybe gardening makes you happy. Well, get conscious of it and do more gardening, and you'll automatically be a happier person. How about calling Grandma? Are you happy every time you hear Grandma's voice? Or taking a long walk out in nature by yourself in the middle of the day? Or practicing meditation? Or spending time in prayer? Fantastic. Do more of those things more often, and you're going to increase your happiness. It's the simplest formula in the world, but it works like a charm. Here are some of the things that make me really happy. Spending quality time with my wife and kids makes me happy. That means family dinners, travel adventures with my wife and kids, fun activities. Doing those things are guaranteed to make me happy. The ocean makes me happy, just about any time, any place. Being in great shape makes me happy. I love having a good body. Having money in the bank makes me happy. Makes me feel secure. It gives me a sense of freedom. Spending time in my Lifebook, visualizing my ideal self, creating my ideal life consciously makes me very happy. World travel is definitely one of my greatest sources of happiness. Hanging out with good friends, having deep, meaningful conversations. City dates with Missy. I'm always happy when we have dates in the city. No matter how my week is gone, I know that on Thursday night, when we have our overnight city date, I'm going to be happy every single week. It's built-in happiness, built into my life. All of those things bring happiness into my life. So if I want to be happy, all I have to do is more of those things. Can you believe how simple and effective this strategy is? So what makes you happy? Is it your friends, warm weather, sunsets, being healthy, being wealthy? What you want to do is list the most important things you can think of that make you happy. Create that recipe. And then what you want to do is run that program in your life as much as possible. Let's turn to some of the other positive emotions other than happiness that we want to experience in our lives on a consistent basis. Here's a list of some of my most desirable emotions directly from my Lifebook. I want to feel deep feelings of love every single day. I want to experience fulfillment on an ongoing basis, meaning the feeling of being filled up, content, and complete. I want to experience passion and sensuality every day in my relationship with Missy. I want to enjoy high levels of confidence and self-esteem in my life. I want to cultivate courage in my life. I want to develop more compassion and empathy over the years. I want to be a calm, peaceful person instead of being stressed out all the time like so many people around me. So let's talk about recipes now. If I want to be a calmer, more peaceful person, what causes that? Here are some of the things that make me feel calm and peaceful. Quieting my mind through meditation. Spending time alone or spending time in nature, being surrounded by living, growing things. Walking in my garden with Missy. Our garden is a retreat that just melts away the stress of everyday life. Getting a massage always relaxes me. Listening to relaxing music. Doing yoga. Well, I plan these activities into my life, and that assures that I'm going to experience tranquility every single day. Now, there's one last emotion that I want to explore because it happens to be in a class by itself. And that emotion is gratefulness. Over the years, Missy and I have discovered that gratitude is simply magic. It behaves different than any other emotion that we've ever encountered. Because we've discovered that it's impossible to hold gratefulness and any form of negativity in your consciousness at the same time. I'm talking absolutely impossible. So if you want to eradicate negativity in your life and replace it with positive emotions, try this. Take a moment to get deeply in touch with all the things that you're thankful for in your life. And notice how it changes the way you feel instantly. Because when you say thank you to whatever benevolent force you believe in, whether it's God or nature or your cosmic mother, whatever put you here, whatever gave you life, you're flooding your consciousness with thankfulness, with goodness and positivity. And you're going to start to see all those things in your life more clearly. And you're going to value them more than you did before. Because what you're doing is you're shining your light, your consciousness on them. You're giving them energy. And then your brain starts to make connections. Your brain starts sending you signals of how lucky and how absolutely blessed you are. Because that's what your brain is designed to do. Your brain is going to make connections with whatever you feed it. You feed it negativity, you feed it fear, anger, resentment, cynicism. It's going to make negative connections, and it's going to strengthen the negativity in your life. But if you feed it with thankfulness, if you feed it with positivity and gratitude, those good things are going to be what expands in your life. Gratitude lets the universe know that you're happy with the blessings and the gifts that you're receiving, and it puts the universe on notice that you're ready to receive more. It's always there for you to access. Anytime you want to turn on gratitude, you can do it. And it will literally wipe out all negativity in that moment. I mean, that's just magic stuff. So, if you want to experience more of any positive, high-quality emotion in your life, gratitude included, there's a recipe for that. Define the recipe, do more of those things, and you will experience more of those wonderful emotions on an ongoing basis. Guaranteed, that is the way it works. Here's another equally profound emotional strategy, and it's the other side of the coin. You can identify the things in your life that make you unhappy, and you can do your best to eliminate those things. Simply list the emotions that you're unwilling to tolerate in your life. Stress, anger, guilt, shame, resentment, worry, anxiety. These are emotions you don't want to hang on to. Listen to them, yes. Learn from them, yes. Hang on to them, get stuck in the middle of them, no way. And just as with the positive emotions, there's a recipe for every one of these negative emotions. You're having a chaotic morning. can't find your keys, you got a project that's due, you got a tough day ahead, and you're not prepared for it, and you're running late, and one of your kids just pours syrup all over the cat, and the car's out of gas, well, congratulations. You've just defined the perfect recipe for overwhelm, for frustration. Don't run that program. If you just take some time to define the things that make you feel stressed out and overwhelmed and angry, you can plan ahead. You can avoid them. If you know you're going to have a busy day, you could just take a few minutes the night before and plan it out. Get everything together. Make sure you're organized. Make sure you know where your keys are. Make sure the car is full of gas. Get ready for your morning. Get ready for the presentation. And expect a great, exciting day. If your goal is to avoid negative emotions, it's super useful to get in touch with what creates them. And then don't do that stuff. It's as simple as that. So after you list the emotions that you want in your life and what creates those feelings, you might want to list the emotions you don't want in your life, the ones you want to avoid, and define the things that cause those emotions to come up in your life and steer clear of those things. Here's another fantastic emotional strategy that I added to my own emotional toolkit a few years ago. Eliminate areas of recurring pain in your life. As Lifebook members, we believe that we should be happy the vast majority of the time. I mean, we see our happiness and our fulfillment as our natural state. Yes, we know there's going to be pain, and yes, we know there's going to be suffering. We know there's going to be frustration and disappointment and unhappiness. It's an unavoidable part of life. But for us, all that negative stuff is the exception, not the rule. Pain and unhappiness are going to come and go in our lives, but they should be episodic, not perpetual. Being perpetually unhappy over anything, or disappointed or depressed or resentful, has absolutely no place in the life of a conscious person. So if we've got pockets of recurring pain in our lives, which most of us do, it's probably because we're not paying enough attention. We got to look for those pockets of ongoing recurring pain, frustration, and angst in our lives. We got to root them out, and we got to make it our mission to eliminate them, because recurring unhappiness should just not be tolerated. It's been my experience that a lot of people, maybe most people, just don't pay enough attention to the things that make them miserable consistently. And they just keep running the same old negative patterns with the same negative emotions over and over and over again until they habituate to the pain and negativity and barely notice it anymore. They just accept it as the way life is. I mean, grown-ups fighting and arguing for 20 straight years over the same issue in their love relationship, over and over and over again. Missy and I have seen this with quite a few couples that we've worked with. It's common, more common than you might think. But in our opinion, it's also unacceptable, at least for Lifebook members, because it's unconscious living. Or an entire lifetime of looking in the mirror and feeling pain and sadness and frustration because of the way your body looks or feels. I mean, that's such a sad thing, but it's an experience that so many people have. But guess what? You don't have to live with perpetual pain. It's far better to get conscious about the source of your unhappiness, to pay attention, to identify that perpetual pain and then fix it. I mean, even if you don't like dieting and exercising, isn't it better to pay that relatively small price than to go through an entire lifetime of feeling sad and having low self-esteem every time you look in the mirror over and over and over and over again? Whatever your perpetual pain is in any category of your life, whether you're an overwhelmed entrepreneur, strung out, overworked, not enjoying your life or your family, I mean, think about it. Is that you? Or if you've got a relationship, a friend or a family member who's a constant source of emotional duress in your life, do you have one of those? Think about it. Or if your financial life has got you stressed out all the time, constantly worried, keeping you awake at night, the first thing you got to do is notice. You got to wake up and get conscious of it. And then you can sit down and think through what needs to be done to eliminate that perpetual pain. What is the rational, intelligent solution? You might have to remove yourself from the situation, or you might find a way to change it, or you might figure out a different way to process it internally so you can change the meaning of the situation in your head and in your emotional body, so you can just stop feeling so much angst about it. Make a list of things that make you unhappy on a consistent basis. Be brave and go deep, because this takes courage. And then once you've made that list, resolve to eliminate those things from your life to the extent you can, because perpetual unhappiness is simply not acceptable in the life of a conscious person like you who's committed to achieving an extraordinary life. Now let's turn to some of the immense wisdom in this Lifebook community. Here are some emotional strategies from Lifebook members worldwide. I will release negative emotional states and replace them with positive affirmations, specifically chosen for my personality type. I will learn to meditate and take time to be grounded so I can create more compassion and empathy in my life. I will use positive past memories to program desirable emotional states and override negative behavior patterns. I will begin each day as the best version of me that I can be. I will focus on taking action toward at least 3 positive emotions each day. I will experience, smile, embrace, and move forward with more love and understanding for myself and others. I will give thanks and experience gratitude daily. I will journal to release trapped negative energy. I will say I love you and I'm sorry whenever they need to be said. And now it's time for you to outline your emotional strategy. What kind of emotions do you want? And what are the recipes for creating those emotions? And what kind of emotions don't you want in your life? And how can you avoid those? Now, obviously, you're not going to be able to build this out completely right now, but just get the broad strokes down on paper. You can refine it later. Take a few minutes now and define the strategy for your emotional life.
Researchers have found that even more than IQ, your emotional awareness and ability to handle feelings will determine your success and happiness in all walks of life.
One of the things that you realize when you study this category long enough is that none of us are exempt from suffering in this life. None of us. None of us make it through life unscathed. Pain, loss, failure, disappointment. At some point, life is going to hit you hard with one or more of those things. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. You will lose someone you love. You will experience failure in your life, and when you do, it's going to hurt. You will have friends that disappoint you, an accident that changes your life forever, or the life of someone close to you, emotional meltdowns, sadness, anger, grief. You can't get through life without brushing up against some of these things. Bottom line is life hurts bad sometimes. No one's immune from it, no matter how evolved. No one. All great religions and philosophies acknowledge this truth. So what do you do when real tragedy strikes? When a legitimate crisis comes? What do you do when your happiness gets seriously threatened? I mean, how do you navigate through those really tough times and get back to your happiness? Well, the truth is, we all handle pain and frustration and crisis differently. Research shows that when we're in serious crisis, a real tragedy, a trauma, a deep disappointment, or an emotional meltdown, it's difficult to tolerate that level of pain for long. So what we do is we develop coping mechanisms to deal with it in one way or another. Some people self-medicate with substance abuse, drugs, alcoholism, overeating, behaviors that cover up the pain or postpone the pain temporarily, negative habits or patterns to get them out of pain, This category is where addiction lives, which is arguably the greatest social problem of our time. Addictions are usually a person's misguided attempt to solve a problem themselves, but we all know that they inevitably lead to more pain. And they can sometimes suck you into a devastating downward spiral that can lead to complete disaster in your life. Now, on the positive side, there are coping mechanisms like psychotherapy, counseling, spiritual practices like prayer and meditation, social support to get us through those hard times. People we love can often be a big, big support during the most difficult times in our lives. Pain and suffering are an absolutely inevitable part of the human experience, and we all find our own unique ways to process them, whether consciously or subconsciously. From the time I was a young adult, the default mechanism that I've used to handle crisis and pain and suffering is to fight it. Not very zen, I know, but it comes from a sense of life where I simply refuse to accept pain and suffering as my natural state, which is why I worked so incredibly hard on myself when I got knocked sideways by that emotional crisis that I told you about earlier. I simply wasn't going to tolerate it in my life. I was either going to fix it or die trying. All my adult life, I've held the conviction that my happiness matters, that achievement, fulfillment, abundance, and joy is the way my life is supposed to be. Being perpetually unhappy or disappointed or depressed or resentful just isn't right and shouldn't be tolerated. When unhappiness shows up in my life, I look at it, try to get to the bottom of it, try to find out what created it, and try to dispose of it as quickly and effectively as I can, because it doesn't belong in my life. Ayn Rand put it perfectly when she said, "It's not that I don't suffer, it's that I know the unimportance of suffering. I know that pain is to be fought and thrown aside, not to be accepted as part of one's soul, as a permanent scar across one's existence." Well, that's the way I've wanted to live my life. That's always been my first line of defense, to eradicate pain and suffering to the extent that I can, because it has no place here. And that strategy served me well for the vast majority of the time. But guess what? Sometimes your defenses get breached. Sometimes life has other plans for you. As hard as Missy and I have worked on ourselves, and as beautiful as we've made our wonderful life together, we're no more immune from tragedy and suffering and pain than anyone else. I've had immense personal tragedies. I've fought battles that have scarred me. I know what it's like to be in so much pain that it doesn't even register anymore. It's maximized, and anything else that goes wrong can't really add much more to the suffering. Maybe you've experienced something like that in your own life. At that point, it doesn't matter how much you want to believe that pain and suffering are unimportant, or how hard you fight to maintain your philosophical sense that happiness and joy are your birthright. Guess what? You just feel broken, plain and simple. You're hurt so bad that you know there's no way you're ever going to be the same. I wish that wasn't the case. I would have loved to have made it all the way through my life, being strong enough to take it all and process it all and make all the pain and all the suffering unimportant all the time. But the truth of the matter is this: I've had tragedies in my life that have left me broken and scarred and changed. So what do you do when that happens? When your entire sense of life gets knocked sideways? When you feel totally beat by life? How do you move from that dark place and find your happiness again? One of the most profound insights that I've ever encountered on that issue is a beautiful story from late 15th century Japan. The Japanese shogun had accidentally broken a priceless Chinese tea bowl that was very precious to him, so he sent it back to China for repairs. It was returned to him fixed. It was fully functional, but it had been repaired with ugly metal staples. So he enlisted the talents of the greatest craftsmen in the kingdom, and what emerged is a Japanese art form called kentasukori, which literally means to repair with gold, and it's still in use to this day. When a bowl or a vase breaks, the potter gathers the pieces and painstakingly reassembles them using liquid gold lacquer to repair the cracks and to put the pieces back together. And the result is the most beautiful thing you've ever seen. Fully functional porcelain pieces with elaborate gold veins holding them together, making them stronger and even more beautiful for having been broken. This art form expresses a profound eternal truth. As Nelson Mandela said, there are few misfortunes in this world that you can't turn into a personal triumph if you have the necessary skill. You will not make it out of this life unscathed. That much is certain. You're not going to make it out without chips and cracks and broken pieces. You can't deny the fact that you're broken, that you got scarred, that you got cracked. When that happens, it's up to you to become the artisan, to pick up those broken pieces and to repair them with gold. If you do that, those wounds, those scars, and those cracks become the very thing that make you more beautiful than you were before. As the great poet Rumi said, the wound is the place that the light enters you. I can tell you this from personal experience, because the Lifebook program was literally born out of my deepest pain. When I was at rock bottom, my dad gave me my very first personal development programs because he thought it was going to help me at that very difficult time in my life. And that set me on a different life path. I fell in love with personal development. I did program after program after program, and the earliest versions of my Lifebook were simply collections of notes from those programs I was studying. One of the greatest gifts I've ever been given in my entire life emerged from the greatest challenge I've ever faced. I will always fight for my happiness, like it's a precious treasure that's got to be defended and protected, no matter what the cost. I will always strive to make pain and suffering profoundly unimportant in my life. That's never going to change. But in those rare cases that I find myself having to accept, as Ayn Rand said, a permanent scar across my existence, which has happened and which may happen again, well, at least I'm going to make it a golden scar and hopefully become better, more beautiful, and ultimately happier, not in spite of it, but because of it. We all have the capacity to turn our broken glass into golden treasure if we can just develop more emotional intelligence, and we're all capable of doing that. And there are some fantastic resources out there. There are brilliant audio programs on the subject. There are people who have devoted their entire lives to studying and teaching how to create and manage emotional states. With a little study and a little practice, you can become an expert in this incredibly important subject. And it's well worth it, because it affects everything in your life so profoundly. Your emotions, your intuition, the innate body wisdom you were born with. What amazing gifts we've been given as a species. Let's honor those priceless gifts and be grateful for them. Value your emotions. Listen to what they're trying to tell you, and you'll become intimately connected with the deepest and with the best part of yourself.